Good Friday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for March the 22nd. Today we are reading together Psalm number 36. Psalm 36, which the translator supplied title for this psalm is Human Wickedness and God's Love. We are told that this is for the choir director of David, Yahweh's servants. So of David, Yahweh's servants. So this is David writing here in this psalm, and it begins with an interesting line that this is an oracle within my heart. So this is something that David seems to have been pondering upon. These are some observations that he has made, and now he's going to put pen to paper and share these feelings that he has had. Think about and I wonder about some of these psalms that David wrote, if they were almost like journal excerpts, that as David is just meditating upon life, meditating upon God and his experiences, if he just at times sat down and wrote these things down, and eventually they turned into what we have today as psalms, as psalms, part of the Psalter as a whole. So let me get the text on the screen for us here. Psalm number 36. It is a contrasting psalm. The first four verses looking at the wicked person, and then the rest of the psalm being dedicated to Yahweh's character and the desire that David has for Yahweh's character to be not just observed and understood, but for it to be experienced as well. So let's read here Psalm 36 and verse number 1. Psalm 36, verse number 1, an oracle within my heart concerning the transgression of the wicked person. Dread of God has no effect on him, for with his flattering opinion of himself, he does not discover and hate his iniquity. The words from his mouth are malicious and deceptive. He has stopped acting wisely and doing good. Even on his bed, he makes malicious plans. He sets himself on a path that is not good, and he does not reject evil. Now, contrasting with Yahweh, your faithful love reaches to heaven, your faithfulness to the clouds, your righteousness is like the highest mountains, your judgments like the deepest sea. Yahweh, you preserve people and animals. How priceless your faithful love is, God. People take refuge in the shadow of your wing. They are filled with the abundance of your house. You let them drink from your refreshing stream. For the wellspring of life is with you. By means of your light, we see light. Spread your faithful love over those who know you, and your righteousness over the upright in heart. Do not let the foot of the arrogant come near me, or let the hand of the wicked drive me away. There, the evildoers have fallen. They have been thrown down and cannot rise up. That is Psalm number 36. I'm going to make a quick note right here. Something just popped in my mind. All right, let's look at this psalm, break it down a little bit today. First thing I want to note is I wonder who this psalm is about. I wonder if David has a particular individual in his mind that he is considering with the writing of the psalm, or if he's just thinking, generally speaking, about the wicked person. I ain't gonna lie, as I'm reading this, I can almost see this being about King Saul himself, maybe. Although we know that David still had great respect for Saul, obviously he had a great love for Saul's son Jonathan. I wonder if observing uh, observing Saul's character and reflecting upon it, this is something that David noticed. Again, this is an oracle from within his heart. These are his observations. These are his thoughts being put to paper. The first thing he says that the dread of God has no effect on him, that God doesn't matter in the eyes of the wicked person. The wicked person has no concern for who God is. And again, I think about Saul. I've heard the claim by some, and I've either heard it or read it, that there are some who think that King Saul was never really a true Yahweh follower. And I think about the story of Saul, especially as we read through it last year, and I think there might be some real credence to that. But with Saul or with any wicked person, David says the dread of God has no effect on him. Why? Because he just does not care about God. All the person cares about is himself. For with his flattering opinion of himself, he does not discover and hate his iniquity. There is prideful self-estimation. There is a complete ignorance from the wicked person of his own sins and of his own failings. The words from his mouth are malicious and deceptive. They hurt other people. He is willing to hurt other people with his words. But notice this, he has stopped acting wisely and doing good. If someone stops acting wisely and doing good, then that seems to indicate that this person maybe previously had wisdom and had done some good. Maybe that fits Saul. But even on his bed, he makes malicious plans. He sets himself on a path that is not good, and he does not reject evil. Even on his bed, he makes wicked plans. Even when resting, his heart is set on evil. His heart is set on evil. I started making that note earlier and only finished half the thought. Yeah, even when resting on his bed, his heart is set on evil. He sets himself on a path that is not good, and he does not reject evil. Evil is attractive to this type of person. And really, verses 4 and 5 are the exact contrast to what we read about in the Shema from Deuteronomy chapter 6, where Moses there instructs for people to meditate upon the law of the Lord. And again, to love him with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength. But this person does not meditate on Yahweh's law, but instead meditates on malicious plans. He is not set on a path of righteousness, but he is set on a path of wickedness. So this is the very sad and unfortunate picture that is painted for us here of what the wicked person does, his characteristics, things that define who he is. Now, in this psalm, at this point, we might be thinking, okay, well, we see here the description of the wicked person. So what we might expect to see next is the description of the righteous person. That's really what Psalm 1 is. Psalm 1 contrasts the good person, the righteous person, the godly person with the wicked person and the evil person. But that's not what happens here, actually. Very interesting. It's not a contrasting of the wicked person with the righteous person, but it's actually a contrasting of the wicked person with who God is. So notice verse number 5 is the switch, and now we're going to focus on Yahweh. Yahweh, 4 things here that really stand out and define who Yahweh is. Number 1, Yahweh, your faithful love reaches to heaven. Your faithfulness is to the clouds. Your righteousness is like the highest mountains, and your judgments like the deepest sea. So 4 things that define who Yahweh is: his faithful love, his hesed, his faithfulness, his righteousness, and his judgments. These 4 things define Yahweh, and they are completely opposed to what we have seen already from the wicked person as described in verses 1 through 4. But here's the thing about these 4 characteristics of Yahweh. Again, his faithful love, his faithfulness, his righteousness, his judgments. We are benefited by these 4 defining characteristics of Yahweh. Continuing on the last half of, or the last couple lines of verse number 6, Yahweh, you preserve people and animals. Well, why? Well, because he has faithful love. He has faithfulness, righteousness, good judgments. How priceless your faithful love is, God. People take refuge in the shadow of your wings. Why? Because of his faithful love, because of his faithfulness. They are filled from the abundance of your house. You let them drink from your refreshing stream. For the wellspring of life is with you, and by means of your light, we see light. By means of your light, we see light. We are benefited by God's good characteristics that I mentioned here: is faithful love, faithfulness, righteousness, and judgment. We are benefited by these things. So contrast that then with the first 4 verses with the wicked person. Is there any way in which we are benefited by the characteristics of the wicked person? I think the answer there is pretty obvious. Negative. We are not in any way, shape, or form benefited by the characteristics of the wicked person. In fact, the wicked person and his characteristics hurt other people. I'm saying about his words being malicious and deceptive. Think about he doesn't do good. He has a flattering opinion of himself, which means he probably puts down everyone else. He's not scared to do anything to you because he's not scared that God is going to hold him accountable. So we're not only contrasting here then the defining characteristics of the wicked person with Yahweh, but we're also contrasting here really the benefits and consequences of these two very different types of defining characteristics. With the wicked person, there is no benefit for other people because everything he does is wrong and hateful and hurtful. But everything that Yahweh does, his faithful love, faithfulness, righteousness, judgments, these are for our benefit. So David then calls these four characteristics of Yahweh to action. Spread your faithful love over those who know you and your righteousness over the upright in heart. I would suggest to you verse number 10 is a sign of Yahweh's faithfulness to people. These are promises that he has made, and Yahweh is calling him to promises. So we see faithful love explicitly stated. We see righteousness explicitly stated, and I think his faithfulness is implied here in doing these things. But then verses 11 and 12 call Yahweh to judgment. Do not let the foot of the arrogant come near me, or the hand of the wicked drive me away. There the evildoer has fallen, or the evildoers have fallen. They have been thrown down and cannot rise. Why? Because Yahweh is just in his judgments. Yahweh is just in his judgments. His faithful love, his righteousness, his faithfulness, his judgment are all called to action in verses 10 through 12. And we should be very thankful that Yahweh acts upon his good and righteous judgments. And that's why for us, we should have far greater concern for God than we do men. We should put all of our confidence and trust in God rather than men. We should put all of our hope in God rather than men, because we know, thankfully, that God does not change from this. This is who he is. This is who God has always been. I know with God there is no beginning and end, and time with him is not really a thing. But for us and our time constrained understanding of reality from the beginning, Yahweh has been these things. He has been faithful. He has shown his faithful love. He has been righteous. He has righteously and justly judged. And we should be so thankful for that. And especially where we are today on this side of the cross. We should be very thankful that, reading the end of verses 8, or reading verse 9, excuse me, for the wellspring of life is with you, and by means of your light, we see light. That only makes me think of the Gospel of John in chapter 1, where we read about Jesus and who he is. Verse number 1, John 1, verse number 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. All things were created through him, and apart from him, not one thing was created that has been created. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. That light shines in the darkness, and yet the darkness did not overcome it. The very same life and light that is being described here concerning Yahweh is the exact same life and light that we benefit from in Jesus. And how thankful we are, how much we should have a great concern for God and not be concerned with people, where we should put our hope and our confidence and trust in Yahweh and not in other people, specifically putting our hope, trust, and confidence in Jesus, who is the life and the light. Jesus, too, we must say, he is full of faithful love. He is faithful in every way. He is righteous, and he is a just judge. We should be very thankful that this is the God we serve, and that focusing on him allows us to not be concerned or worried or anxious over the many wicked people that surround us every day. If you have any questions or comments about Psalm 36, please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. And I appreciate so much you taking some time reading along with me on this Friday morning. We will be gathering on Sunday for our worship assembly, our Bible classes at 10, our worship assembly at 11. And then also we will be reading on Monday, Psalm number 37, which is a much longer psalm. Psalm 37 is about 40 verses. So we'll read through that and have some comments to share with that from this psalm as well. Again, thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you on Sunday, and we'll be back reading again on Monday. Take care. God bless.